Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. I'm your host, Rob Love, and I'm so glad you dropped in again here on One Flock as we take flight for yet another episode. And today is one you don't want to miss because we're talking about yet another, yes, I said it, another change in the Ravens defensive coaching staff. Last week's developments were quite impactful, and yet another one you'll be very happy to hear about what's happened in this latest update. Also, some glaring concerns coming up with the upcoming roster. Some challenges that Eric DeCosta is really going to have his hands full with. We're taking a look at all that today. So glad you came to fly with a brother. Welcome to One Flock.
Let's go Ravens, let's go Ravens, let's go Ravens, let's go Ravens. We are one flock, we are one flock, we are one flock, we are one flock.
Man, I always get so excited when I hear that theme song. Come on, because you know what that means. It means it's time for us to dig in to all the latest of Ravens content. And we've been getting so much breaking news as of late. Some not so good, others very good. And today I'm happy to tell you the breaking news that we are going to get out right now is good news. Yes, we have another coach, a highly sought after individual that is now joining the Baltimore Ravens staff, a young man at the age of 36, Mr. Tyler Santucci. And if I messed up your name, Coach Santucci, I'm sorry, but I'm sure we'll get it right as you begin your tenure here with the Baltimore defense. Tyler will be joining the Baltimore Ravens staff to replace Mark, and this was another name that I'm probably about to mess up. It was Mark DeLeon. Italian, I guess that's what that is. Mark came from Chicago. He was only here for a year, and he was our linebackers coach last year, very short tenure, and now he exited. We heard that last week. We're wondering what they would do about that, and we found out very quickly. Today, Tyler Santucci announced as the linebackers coach for the Baltimore Ravens going forward. Now, who is Tyler? Well, he hasn't been in the NFL before. But as we found out, that is not necessarily a bad thing. We have seen a lot of success in recent years of coaches, young minds coming from the college ranks and joining the NFL in these key positions. I want to point something out. Last year, Tyler Santucci was at Georgia Tech. He was at Georgia Tech, and he was only there for a year before we called him up. At the same time we were trying to get him, multiple Power 5 schools were trying to steal him away this year to get him to go to their collegiate programs. Before that, he's been bounced from school to school because every time he went to another school, somebody else was trying to snatch him away. At Duke, which is where I first became familiar with him, because as you guys know, I'm a Louisville guy. Duke is in our conference in the ACC, and their defense out of nowhere became great just a couple of years ago. And why was that? Well, I didn't know at the time, but there's this guy by the name of Tyler Santucci who showed up, and all of a sudden, Duke had the number one passing defense in the ACC. It was out of nowhere. But again, as you look at this guy's resume, and we're going to look at it right now, if you look here, you can see he started off in 2010 as the graduate assistant at Stony Brook University. Then he went on to become the safeties coach. He stayed there and became the defensive line coach. So he was doing all different areas of the defense there before finally getting called up by Wake Forest in 2014. He was only there a year before Texas State said, we need you. And there he was linebackers coach again. 2017, Notre Dame pulls this guy from Texas State. He only got to stay there for a year before Texas A&M said, we need him as a defensive analyst. He got to be there a year before Wake Forest called him back as a linebackers coach. Then Texas A&M got him for a year before he ended up becoming co-defensive coordinator and linebackers coach. And that was right before he ended up going to Duke and absolutely tearing through the ACC. And now, of course, we steal him from his 1 year at Georgia Tech, and I am excited about this coach. When you get young, innovative minds, individuals who have proven they can do it no matter where they go, and they become the who's who, that choice person that everybody's trying to steal from the other guy. I wouldn't be surprised if not too long from now, someone's trying to steal Tyler Santucci from us. But hard to steal from one of the more notable defensive programs in all of the NFL. Because if you want to get your name, you really want to get out there as a defensive mind, where else better to do it than our Baltimore Ravens? So welcome, Coach Tyler Santucci. Hopefully we'll get you on the show sometime. If I'm messing up your name again, I apologize, but super excited to have it. This right on the heels of us finding out we got Coach Pagano back last year. So now not only do we have OPP, Zach Orr, Pease, Pagano, we also got Mr. Tyler Santucci. And this is going to be an exciting year. I'm convinced on defense. There are some things that we're going to have to figure out, though, including not just the defense, the offense. My goodness, the longer that I start looking at and hearing things about how our roster situation and the cap is shaping up for next year, this is going to be one of the more challenging years for DeCosta to juggle this roster so that we can maintain the roster that we have that's Super Bowl ready. What do I mean by that? What are we looking at? Well, first of all, we don't have much cap left. I'm hoping to have a guest on, if not this week, the next week, that's really going to shed some light and shows us really how this cap situation is breaking down, because it can be confusing. You know, we keep hearing about the cap. We know it's only so much money, but the way they have to maneuver and manipulate contracts, because as we know, the third year of Lamar Jackson's contract is coming up, and that thing is loaded. The third year of the contract, unlike the first two, is when you really start getting to some big money. I believe $75 million is the cap hit in the third year of Lamar Jackson's contract. So, of course, that's a big hit, and I'm sure they're going to be trying to do something to negotiate that. But at the same time, our left tackle, Ronnie Stanley, is now free agency. Ronnie Stanley's a story in himself. We know that when we got Ronnie Stanley, he got that big first contract because he was so impressive right out the gate. But we never got that money out of Ronnie Stanley. He never really earned that first contract, and it was injury. It was injury-based. He became injury-prone. It was like, seemed like for the better part of 2 years, Ronnie Stanley really wasn't available. And now we got to see he really started to come into form again this past year. But how reliable, how much faith do you really have in Ronnie Stanley and his health after that first experience? More importantly, how much faith do the Baltimore Ravens have? Because if you look at some of the numbers, it's estimated right now that Ronnie Stanley as a left tackle in free agency could be as expensive as $21 million a year. You think the Ravens are going to extend for that kind of money? I think right now he's $19 million a year, I believe, is what he has from us presently. If we're not going to re-sign Ronnie Stanley, if Ronnie Stanley's going into free agency, then who do you have at left tackle? Because we all know left tackle is one of the most important positions on the football field. It's the blind side of your quarterback. If you got a guy who's getting beat, especially when you're playing in our division, I mean, the guys we're going up against are some of the most terrifying pass rushers in the league. And Lamar Jackson is on everybody's, who we want to hit, who we're chasing down. Every defense is gunning for our guy. So that left tackle position is very important. Very curious to see how it is that the Baltimore Ravens and Eric DeCosta addressed this situation, because the timing really couldn't be worse. At the same time, you got Mekari, who's kind of like our Swiss Army knife. He's free agent this year. The good news is on the O-line, we do have young talent that's in the rookie contracts. At center, we've still got Tyler Linderbaum, but getting close to the end of his rookie contract as well. They're probably going to be trying to think about going ahead and extending him or doing something with him, working out a deal before we get to the final year of his contract, because Tyler Linderbaum and another guy that we know by the name of Kyle Hamilton came in at the same time. If we don't deal with one of them this year, that means we're going to have to be trying to give both of them contracts. Two guys that there's no way we want to let go. In the same year, I doubt very seriously if the Ravens want to do that. So you got to think one of those guys has to be, get a deal in place of some sort. Whether that's Linderbaum, whether that's Hamilton, one of them you would think has to happen. At the same time, we've got issues at corner. Remember, there's a guy named Marcus Williams who we just been paying a bunch of money to do nothing. That's just been sitting on the bench, not doing much more than what he was doing in the games. I believe that right now, last we heard, we're going to take a hit on letting him go because he's under contract and they're just going to take the hit. What do we do to replace him at corner or to give us some more depth there? Questions. Marlon. We got to keep Marlon. There's no way we can let Marlon go. Marlon is our guy. But Marlon, he's got to get paid. So many things that we really got to look at right now. Now, Roquan had a kind of a down year. He's under contract, but what do we negotiate? Can we get some cap room by renegotiating something with Roquan? These are questions. Something else that's been discussed is edge rusher. Now, we've gotten some inconsistent play at edge. We did get quite a few sacks last year. We've seen a resurgence from some areas we didn't expect to see it coming from. But what will we do in the draft? I mean, will we really, with all these concerns on offensive line, will we really be able to give much attention to an edge rusher? Is that something we try to look for with a veteran in free agency? And then wide receiver depth. Nelson Aguilar, will he be back? Probably not. Tylan Wallace, can we figure out a way to keep him? I'm hoping so. I really like Tylan Wallace. I think because of the fact that he's so good, not just as a receiver, a shorthanded receiver, but he's also heavily utilized on special teams and does a great job there. So Tylan Wallace, do we get him back? We know we've got Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman, but what do we do about replacing Nelson Aguilar? And then we get to tight end. Mark Andrews has one more year on his contract. If we extend him next year, that means we probably don't have the money to sign Isaiah Likely. Is that a situation that we want to be in? Mark is a great Raven. Mark is one of the best Ravens of all time. But Mark versus Isaiah Likely, right now, do you really feel that if you're about to lay big long-term money down, do you feel like that Andrews is the way to go? I don't know. As I look at the two, Isaiah Likely, 6'4", shifty, lots of yak. The moves we've seen him put on, the sure-handedness, which is so fresh in our minds after watching the Mark Andrews game in the playoffs. I don't know if you only can keep one, I don't know if you choose to keep Mark Andrews. You may choose to try to trade Mark Andrews to get some more picks, to get something that can help you down the road and keep the younger, more versatile and more reliable here recently, Isaiah Likely. So again, what do we do here? What do we do? What does DaCosta decide to do? Because if you don't extend Mark Andrews this year, then you really can't play with his cap hit. And his cap hit is pretty significant from the tight end position. Inside linebacker, we got Malik Harrison, Chris Board. They both are in free agency right now. Do we re-sign those guys or do we look for younger talent? What do we do? And then there's this whole thing with the salary cap. The salary cap we are not one of those teams this year that just have all kinds of salary cap room. We don't. We have one of the premier quarterbacks in all of football. And because of that, as a direct result of that, we have to pay what you pay the best quarterbacks in the league. You know, there's certain teams in this league that are always going to be dealing with that situation. Kansas City Chiefs are going to be juggling with that. Buffalo Bills are going to be juggling with that. The Baltimore Ravens are going to be juggling with that, because when you have one of the premier players in the game, you really have to be an artist with juggling around that cap, because your quarterback's going to take a nice big chunk out of that. And I'm not mad about that. I'm not mad at all that we're in that situation. I'm quite thankful that the Baltimore Ravens have to pay a premier contract to a premier player in the game. Speaking of which, really excited to see if he wins the MVP. I know some of you guys don't care about that. I do. I think it's very important that you know that in today's time, right now, you have the best player in the NFL. Because if you do, that gives you more confidence going into the next season. Anyone who saw what happened this year, we're not concerned about what we got coming from quarterback next year. Now, if our quarterback who we signed to a 5-year deal 2 years ago, if he didn't look like the most valuable player in the league this year, wouldn't that be concerning to you? But doesn't it feel good when now you realize that you have the most valuable player in the NFL as your quarterback, and he's making less money than Dak? You're getting him for a bargain. Come on. I'm just telling you, I feel great. Lamar Jackson is an incredible player, incredible person. And I know he's going through it right now, the disappointment that we are. I think he's going through it in worse ways than we are. As much as we're upset and hurt by the loss, he's thinking about all these things too. He's thinking about what kind of roster does he have for next year? Because that's the most frustrating thing. We know we had the roster this year. And now the whole concern is, how do we keep the right pieces? And offensive line is a very big part of that. What will that thing look like next year? Well, if one thing we've learned as Ravens fans, Eric DeCosta and those guys, they do an excellent job of utilizing the draft and free agency and pulling some hidden gems out. And I don't think this year will be any different. But yet and still, I wanted to take a second to look at some of those concerns, because that's what we're going to be getting excited about as we start looking at these next few weeks, as we get closer, as we get past the Super Bowl, when the Kansas City Chiefs cheat their way to a three-peat. You knew I was going to throw that in there. When we get past that and get to looking at the developments in terms of roster building and the draft, when we get to that, free agency, who moves where, who do we lose, who do we keep, how do we adjust the cap, renegotiations of contracts. So be looking out for that. These are a lot of the things we're going to be taking an even closer look at in the coming weeks and months heading into next season. But that's the updates for this week. Great, exciting news. Again, for those of you who just tuned in, we started off the show. We have another highly sought after addition to our coaching staff on defense. Big welcome to Mr. Tyler Santucci, coming to us by way of Georgia Tech, one of the most highly sought after collegiate defensive minds in recent years. And we're very excited to have him here with the Baltimore Ravens. So again, thank you so much for tuning in. We know the Super Bowl is coming up soon. We're not in it. We're upset about that. But guess what? At least we don't have to worry about being across the field from the boys in black and white who have on their Kansas City Chiefs underoos. We will talk about that. I started digging and pulling up information because I wanted to put together an episode that just kind of looked at how many games the Kansas City Chiefs have literally won in the playoffs that were highly affected by the refs. I knew it was quite a few, but it was shocking when I found out exactly how many. It's disturbingly shocking. And again, we'll get into all of that, because I know there's people that try to say, no, the refs don't. Yes, they do. Yeah, and yes, they have. It is one thing if controversial calls affect a game here and there, but the consistent rate at which controversial calls have directly influenced the Kansas City Chiefs getting to a Super Bowl and winning is disturbing. But we'll look at that. That's still getting put together. That's going to be a fun show. Anyhow, I'm Rob Love. I'm so glad you guys came and dropped in today. Short episode. We'll get into it with some more. We'll see what developments happen tomorrow. But whatever it is, you'll find it here. We got up to over 600 subscribers. My goodness. Almost to 700. If you haven't already liked and subscribed, please take a moment, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, tell a friend, check out the playlist. We got some good stuff on there too. But just thank you so much for you guys' support. Our goal is we want to hit 1,000. If we can hit 1,000 subscribers before March, that'd be incredible. But again, you guys are great. I love you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If there's one thing that this world will never be too full of, it is the thing that I'm talking about, I feel right now, and that is love. So find somebody that needs a little bit more love in their life and give it to them. Remember, we don't fly alone. We fly one flock. Thanks for flying with brother. Let's go.
We take the field as one flock. No Ravens, here we go as one flock. We keep grinding till we soar to the top. Come on, Ravens, here we go as one flock. We keep grinding till we soar to the top. Let's go, Ravens, let's go, Ravens, let's go, Ravens, let's go, Ravens. We are one flock, we are one flock, we are one flock, we are one flock.
Everything out of me, they gonna get a Super Bowl out of me. Believe that.